Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here to protect what I'm following Cornel West calls our democratic experiment. It's a democratic experiment that's under attack. And anytime you attempt to have a democracy, there are always present anti-democratic forces. One of my favorite political theorists, Iris Marion Young, in her book, Inclusion and Democracy, begins, the first chapter, the first sentence, is democracy is hard to love. Now, what does that mean? Democracy is hard to love. And how are we able to think about that in a society that calls itself democratic? What she means by that is democracy is a process. Democracy requires work. Democracy is not just something you have or something you're given. It is something you strive for. And that means working against anti-democratic forces that you might find at the level of the citizenry or at the level of our highest politicians. Now, they're all, at every level there's a threat to democracy in our society. One of those greatest threats to democracy is the senator from Kentucky. You know who I'm talking about. It's funny to me that someone who is a political leader refers to himself as the Grim Reaper, and he thinks it's funny. Yeah? He's the Grim Reaper because he knows that his desk is the place where policy that is written for the people, goes to die. And the policy that is written for the people goes to his desk to die. The question is, what side is he on? What is his position regarding democracy? So these are one of these anti-democratic forces. There are many. He has a team. He has partners. But there are many of these anti-democratic forces that we must wage war against. Right now in our state, the state of Kentucky, 37% of Kentuckians are in poverty or low income. Where is Mitch? Where is Rand Paul? People are suffering and unable to afford Medicare. Where is Mitch? And for the Kentuckians who are in poverty, for the Kentuckians who are struggling with Medicare, for Kentuckians who are struggling to educate their children, for Kentuckians who, when they get their paycheck, because they're not making a living wage, they have to sit down at the table and decide whether they're going to pay the light bill, buy groceries, or pay for insulin. Where is Mitch McConnell? Has he been talking to those people? We're in a country right now, the United States of America, where almost half of the population is in poverty or low income. And we're on track to become the richest and the poorest country in the world at the same time. That is, we have more wealth in this country than in any other country in the world. But that wealth is concentrated in the hands of a small part of the population. And the gap between the rich and poor is continuing to grow. We cannot have a democracy when the focus is on the haves and we simply forget about the have-not. Democracy requires health care for all. Democracy requires a living wage. Democracy demands that our political leaders face, talk with, and help their constituents. Democracy demands the right to vote and the removal of all obstacles to voting. Democracy demands that we basically give a damn about each other. And it demands that our political leaders give a damn about us. That's pretty simple. It's not hard. But these are the things we have to strive for and fight for on a day-to-day basis. I'm here to represent the Poor People's Campaign, so let me say a few words about the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. This movement is actually a continuation of the movement started by Martin Luther King Jr. in the late 60s. The last couple of years of his life, King was traveling the country, talking to working class black people, working class Native Americans, working class Latinos, working class whites. and myself and many other scholars are convinced that this is why he was killed. That if you can bring people together across the color line, regardless of race, regardless of gender, regardless of sexual orientation, something has to change. And I'm happy to see such a diverse group here now, because this diversity represents America. And if we can all come together and not allow the anti-democratic forces to divide us, we'll win this battle. And I thank you for being here, and I thank you for being on the side of democracy and being on my team. Thank you.
Very well said, Dr. Farr. We definitely need you on our school board, that's for sure.